Okay, we've just been talking about the harm principle and why I think it's actually a useful principle, even in practice. Now let's change gears and talk about the desert constraint. So remember, the desert constraint said that conduct may be criminalized and punished only if and to the extent that this is deserved based on the culpable wrongness of the conduct. That's the idea of desert as a limit on criminalization and punishment. But the desert principle also has a positive flip side. Very few people think that culpability by itself, without harmfulness, is sufficient reason to criminalize this or that type of conduct. But a lot of people do think that it's at least a reason in favor of criminalization. Culpability might make a case for criminalization stronger, especially if it's in conjunction with criminalization being likely to reduce harm to others in society. So our system does seem to bear this out because sometimes culpable forms of cheating or lying, like in fraud or manipulation or evasion, that can amount to a crime even if no harm is actually caused. We then say that those behaviors are criminalized in the inchoate mode. They're inchoate crimes in the sense of not requiring harm. Okay, so we've got desert as a limit and desert as a positive basis for criminalization. So why should we insist on the desert constraint as a limit on the criminal law in a free society at all? Why do liberals, those concerned with freedom, think that conduct must be culpable in order to be criminalized, and that the innocent who don't deserve punishment should be protected from punishment, even if it would help, for example, reduce crime or enhance security, to take an innocent person and make an example of them, to scare people and deter others from doing as much crime, right? Why insist on the desert constraint even then? There are two parts to it. There's a simple reason and a slightly more complicated reason, but which may ultimately be more powerful. First, punishing the innocent would obviously be unjust. Criminalizing conduct without a desert basis for it, without the conduct being criminalized, being culpable in a way that makes punishment deserved, that would be unjust. This is simply not how we treat people with basic human dignity. That's the idea. We don't punish them and call them criminal wrongdoers when they've done nothing that's really morally wrong. That would be to send a false message about them. It would violate their dignity as an individual, as a human being. That's the simple idea. Okay, but I can see the skepticism in your eyes already. Authoritarians might come in here and say, you know what? Justice is all well and good in theory, but in the real world, we have to sacrifice some justice in order to preserve security in society and protect people from harm. Right? For that, they might say, it's worth it to do a little bit of injustice in places. That's an argument you'll hear. So you'll be able to guess that I think that's a bad line of reasoning. I think it's scary. I don't want that in my society. But how do we answer it? That's where the appeal to individual freedom, I think, has some promise. So the second answer, the second point here about why in a free society we should respect the desert constraint, right? The second reason is that in a free society, we have a right not to be used simply as a means to benefiting the majority, to have severe costs and burdens like prison time imposed on us solely in order to confer benefits like increased security or reduced harm to people in general. At least not solely for that reason. In a free society, we don't have a duty to bear such costs. We don't have a duty to make such sacrifices to our own self-interest in order to reduce harm to others and benefit society at large, just as a general matter. That would unduly infringe on our right to lead our lives as we see fit, as long as we don't actively harm others. In the criminal context, we would only have a duty to make sacrifices of that kind, sacrifices to our self-interest and freedom in order to deter, to be an example and to deter others from committing crimes in society, only if we've first acted in ways that are culpable, only if we have first acted in ways that disrespect others in society. Then we open ourselves up to being punished in order to serve as an example to others and deter them from doing crime and reduce the overall amount of harm in society. Right? If we've done something that's culpably wrong, that deserves punishment, then we can be used as a means to deterring others and reducing crime in society. And in that case, right, when we've acted culpably, we at least partially waive our right not to be forced to make sacrifices to our freedom and self-interest solely for the benefit of the greater good, right? When we act culpably, being used as a means to lower the amount of harm in society becomes permitted. So that's one way to see how liberal ideas, freedom respecting ideas, require the desert constraint. You're usually free to go about your business, lead your life as you choose, provided it doesn't harm other people. But when you then go and behave culpably in a way that deserves punishment, you somewhat lose that right. And then you can be required to bear the serious costs of punishment in order to deter other people, in order to be an example to other people and benefit society through serving as an example and deterring others from committing crimes. So in a free society, we don't punish the innocent because that would be unjust and unfairly interfere with our general right to lead our lives as we choose, as long as we're not harming other people. And that's how we get to the desert constraint from the idea that the criminal law should respect individual freedom. In a liberal society, in a free society, the desert constraint applies.